Hello and welcome. My name is Wes, and you are listening to Wiki Wiki What, a super small talk podcast wherein each week my younger brother Owen and I trade off researching a random Wikipedia article as chosen by Wiki Roulette before sharing what we've learned with one another and our rather humble audience. Now, there are two main rules we have to follow. The first being we can only use Wikipedia in our research, so nothing outside of that. And no searches are allowed. We broke with that format a little bit last week for Owen's super duper extra long Titanic sized The Simpsons episode. But normally there's no searching allowed. So to get from one article to another, we have to find our way there through internal hyperlinks, degrees of Kevin Bacon style. But now that that's out of the way, my name is Wes. I'll be sharing with you today. And Owen, how are you doing today?
I am doing pretty good. How are you?
Okay, excellent. Well, since last week's episode was so long, and actually our last few had been a little bit extra long, I'm going to keep this one a little bit shorter. I might even break it up into two parts, I think. But let's get into it. So my first article I pulled this week was on Shoot Ogawa.
All right.
Now, Shoot Ogawa is an award-winning magician born in 1975 who right now he's working as a corporate entertainer, but he has won Magician of the Year a total of 6 times, twice in 3 categories. So first he won Close-Up Magician of the Year, then was Parlor and Stage Magician of the Year. He won each category twice and then moved on to another category.
Is there a major difference between those?
I would assume, well, I think it's all the same, like, it's the Oscars of Magic Awards. Like, I assume it's all the same.
Oh, cool.
Like he won, best directing and then best screenplay or whatever. But it's, he won Close-Up Magic, so that's, like, something you would do in person. Close-up, like hand magic, I don't know. Then Parlor, which is more like, I guess, parlor tricks that you do with a smaller group of people, and stage magic where I assume is like you're up on a stage performing tricks in like an audience, like like David Copperfield or Penn and Teller or something like that. So it actually is interesting. I guess it makes sense because I assume close-up magic is the easiest to get started in, just because it's the easiest to perform. Like, you don't need to have a stage, an auditorium full of people or for something like stage magic you might. So he won a total of 6 times Magician of the Year, and he's won a few other awards, more than a few, quite a few. But notably, so the first time he won Close-Up Magician of the Year was in 2003. That was the same year that he first came to America, and he spoke very little English at the time, so it's pretty impressive that he was able to win. And in March of 2003, he was featured on the cover of Magic Magazine.
Okay.
Now, Magic Magazine is also known as the Magazine for Magicians. It was created by Stan Allen. It debuted in September of 1991 and saw its final issue, number 301, published 25 years later in November of 2016. So a publication ran just over 25 years. And since, and it has featured plenty of magicians on the cover. The first American stage magician, Lance Burton. He was the first to grace the Independent magazine's cover. And through the years, it has featured the likes of David Copperfield, Siegfried and Roy, Penn and Teller, Mike Cavaney, and Mac King. Last 2 I don't know, but
okay.
First few I do. Now into here. Oh, and just listen very carefully to what I'm about to say, okay?
All right.
In 2001, it was announced that Magic would be producing a once-in-a-lifetime, never-to-be-repeated event called Magic Live. It was to take place in August of that same year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The sixth and final Magic Live was held in August of 2013. So they repeated it a few times.
What's
Six
so
in a lifetime, though, is still pretty good. You
how
know,
how
Is-
special is it to be a once in a lifetime experience 6 times?
well, I believe each time there was like a big push to bring it back. I assume they would have brought it back since 2013 if the magazine was still in publication.
Okay.
But every year it broke, like shattered the records from the previous years, like ticket sales. And it was usually sold out like well in advance. So pretty hotly anticipated event. But I thought it was funny that they're like, this once in a lifetime, never to be repeated event called Magic Live. It was the first of 6. But again, to be fair though, like I feel like there's plenty of stuff that if it only happens 6 times, that's amazing, you know?
I mean, that does sound kind of cool though, like a convention just full of magicians.
It seems like really cool. Can you imagine, like,
You would have
instead
no
of walking
idea
around
what's real.
Comic-Con and just everybody's like doing magic tricks right in front of you, like fire and doves and
that'd be so
flowers are all shooting all over the place. Like, it'd be kind of cool.
You couldn't turn a corner without getting someone to show you a card trick.
Yeah. Or just like every door you open, it's like you end up in a closet and then you open that door and then you're on stage somewhere. Like,
They're just hats full of birds.
I imagine there were a lot of doves. I don't know if it was a convention like a Comic-Con. I think it was more of like a live show kind of style event. I'm not too sure. There wasn't a ton of information about it on Wikipedia. But the next thing, so in 2005, Magic Magazine, and a little bit of a stipulation, you know, but Magic Magazine was deemed the world's largest selling publication for magicians by Guinness World Records.
Okay.
I do think, you know, I've never won a Guinness World Record. That's pretty impressive. I think it's kind of funny that you're like, this is the world's largest selling publication specifically for magicians.
How many publications are there specifically for magicians?
Right? That's what I want to know. I want to know what the competition's like.
Also, how many magicians are reading it to beat out all the other magician like targeted magazines?
I don't know. It was there's not too much more information on it. It was a fairly successful, popular magazine. I think the reason it isn't around anymore has less to do with its lack of popularity and more just, you know, print dying in general.
Yeah. Does it not
but
have
anyway,
like it didn't like go online or anything? It just totally shut down?
Yeah, I here, let me double check.
I feel like the magician's business has got to be, I'd probably guess, pretty rough these days. You know, a lot of the mystery and the luster probably isn't there. I mean, you could likely Google any common magic trick.
I mean, yes and no, because I mean, you would think so, but also, how much easier as compared to, you know, being a magician in the 80s or 90s compared to today with the internet, where you can have a YouTube channel and there's all different kinds of magic now, where there's like editing magic, where people will have a YouTube channel where they pick up a car and then it's a Hot Wheel and they like do a bunch of cool stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, like
I think that
I think yeah, no, it makes more sense that now that I think about it, because I mean, like, you know, we have TV and movies, but there are still theater performances. You know.
Yep. Yeah, I think there'll always be a place for it. I think if anything, there's a bigger audience for it now. There's just also a lot more stuff you got to sift through, you know.
How cool
so
would
much
that be?
noise. I mean, even
like,
we have multiple podcasts on the go right now.
How cool would that be? Like, you meet new people and they're like, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And you know, you get to say you're a magician. I do magic tricks.
I would think it's cool, but I think it's very impressive to be a magician and that's like your gig, that's how you pay your rent.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I feel like there's plenty of people in the world who, if you walked up to them and you're like, oh, I'm a magician, they'd be like, oh, okay. But really, I feel like, honestly, because how many like world famous, hugely successful magicians are there at one time? Like, I feel like we can't, as a society, maintain more than like 3. You know, like there's like, I bet you're more likely in your lifetime to become president of your country or prime minister of your country than to be like a world famous selling out theaters magician.
I think like, you know, a lot of the magic I've seen, a lot of the magician performances I've seen have been most of them have been pretty similar. It seems like it'd be a very difficult field to like stand out in, you know, to not just do well, but to do so exceptionally well.
I think it's kind of like music, you know, how to be a successful musician, you need a bass line. Like to be a drummer or a guitarist or a singer in a band, you need a bass line of talent. And it doesn't matter if you're the most talented or just, you know, on the lower to middle end, because so much of being successful is luck and connections, and it doesn't have a lot to do with your actual musical skill or your songwriting ability as much as right place, right time. You have to be lucky, you have to put the work in. Sure, you need to have the skill to get to there in the first place, but how many people can get to that baseline of skill that you need to, you know, break out?
Yeah, I think
being a magician is probably a lot like that.
Yeah, more and more like talent is probably very helpful and can get you far. But you know, like I would think that you know, being a little more standout-ish in your talent level is probably like pretty important as a magician. But like, yeah,
but I wonder if it's talent or charisma.
Yeah, I think that's that too, you know, because like you know, music, it's there's a presentation aspect to it, but it's large. It seems like largely dependent on the music itself. But for like magic, I think a lot of it is more like the performance. Like not only what trick are you doing and how does it look, but how do you, you know, engage with the audience while you're doing that is probably a big part of it. Like Penn and Teller are very successful, and they engage with their audience very, very well, which I would think would probably have a large part to do with their success.
Yeah, like I was saying before, I feel like it has more, like you need that baseline talent, but then it's the rest of it's charisma, right? Mm-hmm. Especially if you're a stage magician, if you're, you know, you need to have that, like, you know, stage presence.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that are, you know, probably pretty hard to do, world records, right?
Yeah.
So again, Magic Magazine, the world's largest selling publication for magicians by Guinness World Records. Now, Guinness World Records, let's go to the Wikipedia article for that. The Guinness World Records is an annual reference book, among other things, that catalogs world records. They're actually the international authority on world records, with a database of over 53,000 records from everything covering human achievement to the extremes of the natural world. And honestly, I think most interestingly, they are also the subject of our next episode, because I said I was going to keep this one short, and I meant it. So we're in, we're out. If you're interested, we'll be back next Wednesday with another episode, this time covering the Guinness World Records and the individual who holds the most Guinness World Records. In the meantime, you can check out everything else we've got going on at supersmalltalk.com. Thanks for listening. We hope to have you back. Bye now.
They'll love me.
Okay.
Mark my words.
That sounds threatening.
The Italians will know my name.
You're gonna get rid of the Italian
listeners. I won't like get rid of the Italians. You know. The Italians are here to stay.